All right, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this Canberra Business Chamber member podcast, workshop, rather, I should say, on attracting and retaining and engaging your teams. I'm Greg Harford, the Chief Executive of the Chamber. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we're meeting today, the Ngunnawal people, and also recognise any other people or families with a connection to the lands of the ACT and the broader region, acknowledge and respect their continuing culture and the contribution they make. And I'd also like to acknowledge on behalf of the Business Chamber any other Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander people who may be joining our webinar today. So welcome, it's great to have you here. And I'm joined today, beaming to you live from CBC headquarters, a great panel of really interesting and talented people. To my right, we've got Sarah McPhillips, who's the executive coach and owner of Matriarch Hair Studio. Sarah has over 30 years experience in the hairdressing industry. She has been a proud owner of Matriarch Hair Studio, or is the proud owner of Matriarch Hair Studio, and enjoys training and mentoring her enthusiastic team. So we're really keen to unpack that a little bit later. But Sarah's also a business consultant, and her focus is on bringing inspiration, accountability, and leadership to the forefront and helping businesses manage their day-to-day operations. So Sarah, welcome.
Thank you very much for having me.
We're also joined by Keith Cantley, who's the principal from Cantley Recruitment Services. He's been working here in the ACT for more than 35 years, so he started when he was very young, but he is a passionate Canberran who's focused on the talented future of this great city and region. He's built an amazing trusted network, forged deep relationships across the community, and has a reputation as one of Canberra's leading executive recruitment consultants and career strategists. So Keith, thank you for joining us. I know you've set out to pioneer a new way of working, putting people at the centre of those employment and recruitment practices. So thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Greg.
Sarah Rajak, to Keith's right, is the Managing Director and founder of Capital Recruit, which was established in 2014. She has extensive recruitment experience both locally and interstate, has worked across the private sector and has an in-depth understanding of the Canberra market, whether it's attracting and selecting one-of-a-kind candidates to managing and integrating entire recruitment processes. Sarah and her team are focused on understanding clients' businesses and their issues and making things work. So Sarah, great to have you here as well.
Thank you.
And last but not least, but Matt Kelly at the end of the table. Matt is the Regional Director of Hayes here in Canberra. He's responsible for day-to-day operations, driving performance delivery and business growth. He's been here for 16 years, working across multiple industries and in partnership with both public and private sectors, and has a deep understanding of the talent needs of customers across construction and property, trades and labour, manufacturing, logistics, procurement, defence, technology, human resources, almost everything, I think. And it's great to have you here as well, Matt.
Yeah,
so thanks.
Thanks, Greg. Pleased to be here. Thank you.
So thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. And thank you to those joining us online who let us know what their biggest issues are when it comes to attracting and retaining staff. We'll try to cover off as many of those as we go through the session today. But if you do have any questions as you go, please use the chat function at the bottom of your Zoom screen to let us know what those are, and we'll be able to respond to those hopefully as we go. But I think we went out to everyone ahead of this workshop and said, well, what are the big issues facing you? And the three big issues that really came through in that feedback were around finding suitably qualified staff, being able to compete with government and the public service on the salary front, and being able to provide the sort of the work-life balance that modern employees are looking for. So look, I'm really keen to sort of unpack all of those issues with our panel here today, but we might start with talking about the skills shortage. Keith, you've been around in Canberra a long time. Where have all the qualified people gone? And how did we get into a position where businesses are constantly struggling to find talent?
That's a good question there, Greg. I don't think we've lost all the qualified people. I think ultimately the city has grown, so the demand for skills and expertise has grown with that. ultimately, then we probably haven't had the throughput or the numbers of people that are coming to Canberra, and been more challenged more recently with changes, particularly with the COVID pandemic, which slowed migration to the city, and then the international, I suppose, individuals who travel internationally to come to the ACT weren't as strong. So it's moved, and it is tight across specialist skills, operational skills. The challenge will be with us for a little while yet. I don't think it's going away anytime soon. So as employers, we need to be thinking more innovatively and differently about where we might find skills. And I think that's the opportunity for us here in the ACT.
Sarah, this is a national problem, right? It's not unique to the ACT, but are there factors about the Canberra market that make it particularly hard, do you think, to find people?
Yes and no. Like Keith was saying about the COVID impacts, we saw the universities really struggle, and the international students starting to think whether or not they want to come to Canberra or to Canberra or Australia. We are seeing business engage heavily with the universities to try and fix that problem, but that's going to take a while. That's not going to happen overnight, and getting the benefit of those international students back in. Also, I think businesses need to think innovatively about how we can work with those students to have them working in aged care, doing like the nursing students working in aged care or working in some sort of healthcare job to help them with their own education pathway. And that's something that we could help change Canberra's problem. But what else is unique? Government is taking a lot of our people. We're seeing government grow, and lots of our government clients are saying we're prepared to take those jobs and move them interstate because we feel like we've drained Canberra. So if our biggest employer in Canberra, or one of the large ones, is giving up and going interstate, that's good for Canberra business because we go, okay, we can breathe a little. But can we think about doing that? Could we take our jobs to somewhere else? Could we take the accountant role and move it to Adelaide? Or could we move some project managers interstate so that businesses can still do really well in Canberra, but we have that remote workforce? And I think we're starting to do it, Greg, but just we need to see more of that. That's not going to be detrimental to business in Canberra. I think that could create some wins for us. I just think we've been a bit slow on the uptake of doing that.
All right, now I've just had some feedback from our audience here that says that they're finding it a little bit hard to hear us, so we might just speak up as we go. I hope that might be better. If anyone has got any feedback on the audio, please just drop a note in your chat bar there as we go. But hopefully that has resolved the problem. Matt, do you think that there are particular industries that are particularly affected by the talent shortage here in Canberra?
I think there's a number of industries and sectors that have been affected and that are feeling the impact of a labour shortage. But just to go back to Sarah's point, so there was a lot of conversation about the Great Resignation. I don't think we saw the Great Resignation here in Canberra. I think we saw the Great Relocation. We saw a workforce that changed quite quickly in terms of their working environments. And I think we've all got friends, family that were positioned here in the ACT, working, living and breathing and spending money in the community, that have now relocated on the South Coast, or they've moved to Queensland, or they've moved into regional areas. So I think that's had a greater knock on. And also in terms of, the impacts of COVID, and I hate saying the COVID word, I think we're past that, but there is still a bit of a hangover from that. And partially that is that the knock on from border closures, the hospitality, the retail, that's all been affected one way or another by that transient community of 250,000 odd employees that are impacted across those sectors and those markets. And I think we're still feeling the impacts of that. But to go back to your question, Greg, in terms of skill shortage, that, I've worked in Canberra in the ACT for a number of years now, and there was always pockets of particular skill sets that were challenging to find. But now at the moment, you can walk into the butcher or the baker and or the local hairdresser or barber, and they're all got signage up there. We're all looking for a particular skill sets, trades, manufacturing. So there's not one particular skill set. I think that's been impacted. We're impacted right across the board. Yeah.
Sorry, Department of employment have a skill shortage list, and it's growing. It's saying that you're right, it's not just one little sector, it's everything, but it's not just Canberra. It's the whole country is struggling, and there's new entrants every 3 months to the skills shortage and skills priorities. As a business, I don't want to keep watching that list because it makes me sad. It's about what are we doing about it. But I'm humbled that Canberra's not alone. We're not the only ones, and we're looking really well at the regions, and I think Canberra can work really well in that space. And I too agree that a lot of our friends have moved, and a lot of them are public servants. I haven't seen a heap of that from the business folks. It's been the public servants have done it, but what about business people? People that are in private industry, and just that flip to think, well, does the role have to be here? And that will open up more candidates for us all.
So Sarah McPhillips, to turn to you, if we acknowledge that we've got a problem with the availability of people, where can businesses look to expand their potential pool of candidates, do you think?
We've had to really think outside the box. I go through the schools, we go through work experience, we reach out to other abilities as well. We've got quite a program going with work experience for young people with other abilities. I also target career change people. And I also look at what in our business, which is so customer service based, some of your biggest fans are sitting in your chair. So we've had a number of people that have come to us for work, knowing that we have a great atmosphere and a really nice work-life balance, and we've got really supportive team. So we've sort of looked to people that are around us in our circle as well. So yeah, but definitely we've had to think very broadly. And I do target that in our social media. I target people that maybe have had enough of the rat race, that want to do something that feels good, or that makes them feel very humble that they can make a difference in someone's life.
Keith, do you have a view on that? I mean, what's your advice to clients who are looking?
Absolutely, I agree with Sarah on that. I think that we have to move away from looking at titles and be open to having conversations with people to really understand where their high skill and high motivations areas are, and then absolutely think about where their areas of lower skill or lower exposure but high motivation to learn are. I think we've got to look at people that can make a career transition from one sector or one industry to another. I mean, I've told you this story, Greg. We spoke the other day. Many years ago, I was a banker for 15 years, and I came back to Canberra to look for work, and I couldn't find work. And I said to someone, I've been looking for 3 months. What is wrong with me? Is there something wrong with me? And the person said to me, well, you're a banker and we're not a bank. And then I realised that I had to actually start to demonstrate skills that were relevant to the employer, which was people, customer service, sales, a whole range of skills that I had. And once I started to do that, more opportunities opened up. I flip that over now, and I think employers need to look at candidates or applicants or people they've met and think about how they may translate their skills to your business. What will they bring to you and what will you give them, and then vice versa. So I think it's a real missed opportunity when we get so focused on looking at a CV and thinking the CV has got to be exactly matching what we need.
To add to that, though, is there an issue also for employers to be thinking about? Because your story is about how the candidate was trying to fit into a box, but actually, do employers need to be positioning themselves in a different way as well?
Employers need to absolutely think like that and position themselves differently. And when they're looking at applicants or looking at potential people for roles, thinking about that transferability, thinking about that ability to move from one sector to another. I mean, for example, I've had people apply to me in the past who were, I would describe, mainstream public sector people. And a business person would look at their skill, their CV, and say, well, they're a public servant and we're not a public service business. But when you start to unpack the person and ask them questions about themselves and where they grew up and that their parents ran a business and they worked in that business, underneath all of that, they've still got a great DNA that fits the business sector. And once you start to understand that, you can realise that the transferability is there.
Matt, have you got a view on that? I mean, where are you, how are you trying to encourage people to expand the talent pool?
Yeah, and I think that's definitely it. In terms, Keith, what Keith mentioned in terms of, you know, highlighting what's in that candidate's skill set or background, and also speaking to, you know, the employer. But in terms of the employer, absolutely need to be thinking about what their business looks like now, but what it's going to look like in the future. And we talk about attracting talent, but once we do attract that talent, it's about onboarding, and then what does that next 12 and 6 months and beyond look like for the employee within your business? Because once you attract and go through that process of identifying someone, and it's then, okay, supporting them through to get them to where they need to be. What we've done recently is that we've got quite a clear, with our business, quite a clear, transparent career pathway and measurable targets and what you need to achieve to get to the next step in terms of your career. So I think highlighting that within, you know, when onboarding, you know, candidates into your business, that, you know, that is something that's quite critical too. Yeah.
In terms of expanding the pool of people that's available, have any of you got experience in dealing perhaps with people with disabilities? Are you looking to that group of people as a talent pool to fill roles?
Absolutely, we do. I don't think there's many of us that do, unfortunately. But no, we've identified that there is a lot of things in a customer service-based industry that people with other abilities are incredible at. I'm still working on a couple of things with the TAFE system and trying to get a certificate through for a salon assistant program. But absolutely, we've had quite a few come through because there is so much of them that they can offer, and, you know, especially within a business, you just catering jobs and special tasks to them. Yeah, absolutely.
I've had some clients do it. Public service is one, of course, but the clubs ACT and the club industry have been doing it for a little bit. But what's the last few years, the change has been that people are coming through with a lot more knowledge on what they can and can't do. They're not coming and saying, okay, I want to work, I want a job. They're coming to us to say, this is what I can do, this is what I can't do, this is where I'm going to need some help, which I feel is a shift, which makes it a lot easier for business to engage, which is having some success.
Yeah. And it is focusing on those abilities. It's really moving away from the word disability to moving to abilities, and because we all have different abilities, and it's working out how those abilities align with what your business needs are. And if you can start to think about it in that context, you move away from thinking about employing someone with a disability, you move to thinking of employing someone who brings you an ability. And I think that's a shift in mindset for all of us. I'm sure you might have to make some changes within your business to support them, but generally they're not significant. And if you get professional advice from people that know, those sort of things can be put in place reasonably quickly.
All right, well, let's move on and talk about money, which is, of course, everyone's favourite topic. Matt, how important is salary, do you think, when it comes to attracting applicants?
I think more than ever, I think, you know, salary is one of the top 3 line items or motivators for candidates looking to move or change careers. Recently or late last year, we sort of released our Hayes annual salary guide, which speaks to the key priorities, and that was a common theme right from you know, employees' top priorities right across the board, and certainly salary was one of those. With increase in living costs and interest rates, all those sorts of things, certainly is a really important part of the pie, right? It's not everything though. There's other levers that organisations can utilise to support their staff. Yeah.
Sarah, what's your view?
I agree. In the past, it was whether or not they apply to a job or not, was whether or not the salary ticked the right box, and then that was the end of it for a bit, until they got right to the end of the process and then had those conversations. Now it's more topical. Not everyone, a lot of people are more comfortable talking about it and requesting what they want, and they know there's a skill shortage, so people are. So that means employers, if you start having those conversations early, and I think it's important to be really transparent with your candidates to say, I am interviewing 3 candidates. I am going to take a week to get back to you, and these are my reasons why, but then ask the candidates to be transparent with you. What is important to you? What are you being considered for other opportunities? And then you can have those conversations early rather than be at the end and go, we're not going to be able to pay them what they want. They've applied to the job because it pays the right amount, but they're actually wanting more than that. And so that transparency, be really upfront, is important when it comes to salary negotiations. But the more open you are with a candidate, the more likely they are to be open with you.
We often hear that there's a bit of a mismatch sometimes between candidates' expectations on salaries and their levels of experience, or the value, the dollar value essentially that they might bring to a business. Keith, how do you go about managing those expectations?
In my world, and I think it's similar, they're all people, so I think it'd be similar anyway, is to have those conversations up very early. Salary was something that people say, oh, we never talk about salary till the end. We don't talk about salary. Certainly if someone immediately asks about salary, it probably is more about what the job pays than the job itself. So it does send signals to you in relation to what they're interested to as an employer. But I think having that conversation up front, being clear on where the role sits in your organisation, and whilst you would love to pay them more, it's about the role, it's not about you, and trying to define that. The challenge for any employer, if you start to pay one person more because you have to fill that role, you'll then have issues across your whole organisation. So it's much more focused on the role and having a transparent conversation. I recruit a lot in the not-for-profit sector, has limitations on what it can pay. When people talk to me about roles, I ask them what their salary expectations are, and they will tell me an amount, and I will confirm whether that is within our range. I don't get into the salary negotiations. Sometimes I give people a hard and fast answer that unfortunately this role will not meet your salary expectations, and we're not in a position to be able to negotiate beyond that point. You've got to practice that message, because ultimately you don't want to lose good candidates, but it is important to be, as Sarah said, transparent and upfront.
Greg, if I could make another point, your comment, Matt, about career pathways in your organisation, that's a really good way of speaking to candidates about, this is the salary for the role, but we see some skills and we see you're going to develop, so this is the career pathway and this is how you can get that salary you're looking for, because your transferable skills aren't right there at the moment, but if we develop these things, we can get you there, as opposed to no.
Yes.
So if you have that, and if you can give real examples about how people have worked through your pathways and worked through the salary, that's more confidence to the candidate. So this isn't just a document that you go through once every 6 months. It's live, it happens, it's in your workforce, it's embedded in your values. And you can show your candidates that you're not just in it for this salary conversation now, it's the whole career that you want to talk to them about. And it's well regarded. Candidates love that. They want to know what a career path is going to look like in that organisation or in that industry.
We do the same thing. Whether it's a starting sort of salary and then based on clientele, retail sales, so all of that sort of, I think our sort of industries are very much happy to pay if we can see some sort of return. But with that comes, paying for education and personal development, lots of other things that we can put into that package, because we can't necessarily, give a really high salary to start. So yeah, we actually do the same thing, and I think it works really well in our industry, because then there is that, and what you're talking about before, when we almost start off with like a reverse job description. So you're almost saying, this is what is available to you, this is what I'm going to offer you. If you want that, come on in and have a chat. That's not really, this is what we're looking for. We find it, I sort of think about it the other way around, and that tends to work really well for us. But to have that sort of pathway, or to say, yep, this is where we're going to start, but happy to help you in whatever way, and support you with education or training or all of that sort of stuff. I think certainly in our industry, I think we've got a little bit more leeway, I think, with the salary.
And I think it does help for you as an employer to be informed about what the market is paying for
Absolutely.
the skills you're looking for.
Yes.
So not to assume, to talk with specialists, advisors, industry groups, salary surveys, to really get a sense of what other peers in the industry, what those sort of roles are paying, and whether you are in the ballpark.
Yeah.
Because if you're not paying enough, well, for those skills, and everyone else is paying more, then you're probably not going to win most of the time.
Yeah.
So that's to be informed and understand is really important.
So Matt, to jump back to you, what other benefits can employers offer, or do you see employers offering instead of higher salaries if you're on that position?
Absolutely. And there's a lot of organisations that are bound by awards and enterprise agreements, and I think highlighting back to Sarah's point, and also Sarah, part of that onboarding process is that we do have an annual review, or we do have a salary review where that will be discussed at this point in time. That it's just not onboarding and negotiate your best rate right off the get-go. It won't get looked at for another 12, 18 months or so. So I think that's a point there. But outside of that, certainly around mental and physical well-being within the workplace, career progression and programs, so training, learning and development, and investment in staff within organisations. So and a lot around culture. There's I met with an organisation just the other day, and they've introduced me days. So they have 2 me days throughout the year. So first half and second half of the year, and that's to be taken just to focus on you. Yes, there's a caveat around it. It can't be tacked onto a public holiday or a long weekend, but certainly, there's things where that's investing time in you, and that's a paid day on top of your annual leave days. And I know that there's a lot of organisations that are playing around and doing sort of similar things to that, and that's on top of them also having RDOs too. So that's quite nice to say. That's to benefit yourself, all being days.
Sarah McPhillips, what else can employers be doing to position themselves as desirable places to work, do you think?
I think what I find is that you've got to be in the trenches, you've got to walk the walk, you've got to talk the talk. I think people need to see what a great environment that we have. People need to see that they are supported, that we have retreat days, that we do training together, that we do sorts of things. So, and I actually put that out into our socials a lot too. So probably about the last 3 staff members, I haven't advertised for years because I just know that there are no senior hairdressers there, and I'm not going to bother because they are all just going for that higher hourly rate. So it's a matter of sort of portraying your business to be somewhere that people want to work, and ideally that's what I want, is people knocking on my door. I just had a call from one of the schools, and she said, oh, one of her friends did work experience with you, said it was great, she wants to come. So if I don't ever have to put a job ad out for the next, I don't know, and that's what I really find it is a good way to actually portray what we offer. And even clients, like people sitting in the chair, go, oh, you guys are so lucky, it's such a great place to work. So yeah, I think you've got to absolutely get amongst it and talk the talk, and put something up there that people actually want to be a part of.
Yeah, so it's that EVP, but you're promoting that brand. There's a lot of organisations that do really cool stuff.
Yeah.
But it's also how you promote that brand and profile that, and social media, and so that's having a knock-on effect in a very, very positive way. So
definitely.
That's great.
And just within the community itself, whether you're getting involved with the local school or the local sporting teams, things like that, people remember that, people appreciate that, and people have that ownership then that they think, well, if I'm going to spring to mind first, great.
Yeah, I think, Greg, we moved away for a period from to have entry-level staff. So employers wanted people to come with all the skills and be ready to go. I think now that we've got to move back to having those entry-level staff, and ultimately having those relationships, as Sarah mentioned, with the schools and other networks is really critical to that pathway, which does mean you're going to have to invest in people. It does mean you're going to have to take a bit extra to get people up to speed. But I really think you've got to, in many ways, grow your own a lot more.
Yeah.
So, modern employees, we're on the kind of the cusp, or even beyond the cusp of generational change. We've got millennials now well and truly into the workforce. We've got Generation Alpha coming through. What does the modern employee look like, Sarah?
Can we go back? What's an alpha?
That's the new ones, the young ones who are now sort of just turned guilty.
Okay, so all right. Okay, sorry, I'm getting used to the lingo again. So I think the modern employees, what they want, like Sarah was saying, they want to see what's on socials. They will stalk your organisation. They will look at who you are and what you're about, not just who you are, but the people that work for you as well. And so they'll do their research. So you need to think about how you have that social connection to the community as part of it, but promoting what you do in your organisation. What's your EVP and how you're doing that? They'll watch and see that. But when they're in your workforce, they want that social connection within the group. So whether or not you set up chatter sites, so whether it's Teams or something like that, where they can share, I'm having a meeting with Matt Kelly, haven't seen him for a couple of years, anyone else want to go? As opposed to just going to that meeting one-on-one and no one knows that you're doing that. They want to feel that connection and know what's going on. They also want to know business has a strategy, but they want to know how you're going against your strategy. What have you actioned and how are you progressing? What was your strategy a year or two ago? And then how is that progressing as opposed to what you're going to do? What have you done? And they'll ask you the real questions. They'll ask you tough ones along the way. Maybe not in the interview, but part of the onboarding and after the first few months, they'll get a little bit stronger at asking those questions. They want to know. They want to know what this organisation is about and where they're going. And their resilience and things like that, it's that coaching and mentoring. I think Sarah mentioned that she's providing to her team. They want that constantly. And that doesn't have to just come from the top. That doesn't just have to come from the leadership team. You need to create an environment where everyone's a leader. Everyone can become a subject matter expert. Everyone has something to share that others can get value from. So that's not just coming from the top 2, 3, 4 or 20 people. It's coming from every level. And they want to see the learning opportunities in there.
Matt, we often hear that there's younger people in particular who are interviewing interviewers, and wanting to make sure that the cultural fit of the organisation is right for them. Is that something that you see a lot of?
Yeah, absolutely. I think going back to Sarah's point, there's a lot more research into organisations, brand awareness, reviews on Glassdoor, all these things. So I think candidates are coming in really well equipped about that organisation, and also, looking at, does this align with my values and also where I can take my career, and also what that means if I'm coming in at this level, how do I get to this level, and how long will that take me, and also seeing those clear career pathways. But absolutely, that social connection within an organisation. And sometimes it's very hard to get that when you're working remotely. And I think, if you can have collaboration days or have people working side by side for coaching, training, mentoring, and that professional development is just going to make it so much more stickier in an organisation for you to retain staff. Yeah.
Also environmentally too, people want to know what is your policy on all of our recycling. All our hair goes to a worm farm. All of these things that is really important to this next generation. So it's a lot of that kind of thing as well. You need to be, right at the front, because that's what they're going to want to know.
And if you're not at the front, that's okay. Ask them to help you.
Yeah, that's right.
What can you
get them
do
to start
help
it?
us?
Yeah, exactly.
As opposed to we can't win at everything. So what are you passionate about? What can you help the organisation with?
Keith, career progression in small businesses in particular is often limited because you've got a small team, perhaps quite a flat structure. What's your advice around how employers can hold on to staff where there's perhaps limited opportunities to progress directly?
Two parts of that. I think there's certain roles in organisations where employers have to accept that there's going to be turnover. they've got to be prepared for that because of the nature of the role, the type of work. You're just not going to have the capacity. And it is a challenge for a small business to, if the job's not there, what do we pay someone to do if there's not the work to be done? What I found is engaging them into things which are external to your organisation, giving the opportunities to attend things, be part of things, support them to be involved in things that build their kit bag of experience. I think it's acceptance that one day you are potentially this person is going to move on. There is an acceptance that will happen. Some hopefully longer, you get the return, I suppose is the word. But allowing them to grow in other ways and participate in things that they may never have seen before or experienced in, which then helps them to develop their career, but also helps them to determine whether they're on the right career and connect with new people.
Sarah McPhillips, I've always thought one of my roles as a manager is to help my people get their next job.
Yeah.
I don't want people to leave, but you've kind of got to keep skilling them up and getting some focus around that so that they can build skills as they go. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely, 100%. I think I used to hold on really tight in the early days because I thought, oh God, if I can keep them here, then we can, look after the clients and build the business, all that sort of stuff. But for example, one of my beautiful hairdressers who's been with me for 9 years now, I supported her through her Cert 3 in agriculture and her Cert 4 in agriculture the last 18 months because she wants to eventually own a farm. But I know, and there's a great statistic that I learned from somebody, the more you support people, even if it's a long-term moving out of your industry or out of your business, they will actually be more productive, more happy, and will actually stay longer if you talk to them. And we do this in our one-on-ones too. So where do you want to go? It might not be here, but how can I help you get there? Do we need to do a Cert 3 in business admin? Is there, so I absolutely believe it's hard. And I think I have a really thing that I kind of live by, and that's that I work for my team. They don't work for me. And I think the sooner you get your head around that, the better people will actually open up those conversations for you too.
Matt, further to that, I think I often try to have conversations with people around, well, what's your 5-year career goal? What's your 10-year career goal? How can we help you there? But sometimes people look at me like I'm mad and say, well, I don't really know. Do you think people are focused on their careers and increasingly so in younger generations?
Yeah, I've got some examples of that. But just back to your point, Sarah, maybe encourage them to do an MBA. You can have her a little bit longer.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly.
Did she start the worm farm? The hair worm farm?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
No, that was me. Exactly. And it's like, well, one day I'm going to have to sell the business. So great, whatever more skills you've got. Awesome.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
But going back to that question, Greg, is that there's been multiple conversations that I've had with candidates over the years, and they've done 2.5 years or 3 years at an organisation, and that's a long time. That's probably equivalent to us doing 5 or 10 years with an organisation. So I've done 3 years. I'm ready to move on, and I'm thinking, well, you've really done your apprenticeship, but okay. But that's the way of thinking in terms of, okay, what's my next step in my career or journey there? But that's happening more frequent than not, those conversations. So I think the strategy needs to be okay, how do we continue if we're looking at continuing this person's career journey with this organisation? What does that look like for their onboarding starting, but also where that role could progress with an organisation? And you're absolutely right. There needs to be acceptance that there are roles within your organisation. I have them where I know if I've got this person for 9 to 12 months, that's a good result. I'm giving them upskilling, greater tools in the kit bag, so to speak, to then move on and do something else within their career. But I've accepted that. But there's certainly other roles within the business where I'm looking for retention, and longevity within the role in the organisation. So there's got to be that bit of a play-off. Yeah, absolutely.
So you mentioned onboarding and offboarding is what happens at the other end. Sarah, how important are those processes? What do employers need to be thinking about to get them right?
Yeah, I think having those career conversations, whether it's a one-on-one or however you go about it, and remembering it's okay for them to leave your organisation, and you want them to leave, we call them a CapRec supporter. So the leave as a CapRec supporter, they could become a client or a future candidate. And Capital Recruit, we've had a lot of success of placing our people with our clients. Really solid recruiters, but didn't want to do it long term. They studied HR or studied business or an MBA or something, and then it was time for them to leave the team and go on to other things. I did have someone say to me, "My mum told me not to talk to you about this." Well, that's old thinking. This is how we think about it now, or this is how I think about it, is I'm happy to have these conversations. It's okay to leave me and leave the team, but we want you to go happy and successful and into your next role and the right role as well.
And it's better to be having those conversations up front, right, rather than be surprised when someone drops a 2-week notice on you.
Absolutely. And also, you know, a good example of, you know, offboarding, so to speak, is that you do get your boomerangs that will come back to the organisation, you know, so and I think that's testament to the way that is managed on the way out, and also being quite supportive of that. And often, you know, we do work in a quite a small industry where they become clients of organisations and also future, you know, promoters within, you know, for your brand and organisation. So I think that speaks volumes.
All right. So just a reminder to those joining us online, if you've got any questions, please do drop them into the chat box at the bottom of Zoom, and we'll get to those. But let's move on and talk about the recruitment process generally. Now we've got stacks of recruitment experience in the room here. Keith, what should the modern recruitment process look like?
The modern recruitment process. Well, I think it hasn't really changed in many ways, although not everyone's. I think people have done it differently. I think a recruitment process should have a structure. So to begin with, have a structure and a plan. The employer needs to clearly work out the steps they're going to take in a recruitment process before they undertake it. They also have to be prepared to move quickly. So they need to move through the process quickly. I think that's really important if you want to secure people. If you let people hang on, you don't communicate with them, you'll lose them. I think communication is really important. I see lots of ads saying things like only shortlisted candidates will be advised. I have a problem with that, I suppose, as a person employing people. I think even though you may not talk with them personally, everyone who applies to your organisation should have advice on whether they've progressed or not, or you don't have to provide them all with deep feedback, but ultimately they should know. Because there is a bigger picture here is about brand. People talk to each other and they communicate with each other and they ask other people. And if you're an organisation that doesn't have a structure to your process, you don't communicate with your applicants, that will travel fast and it will impact on the quality of the applicants you'll get at a later date.
Sarah, what's your opinion?
Okay. Know what you're looking for, really understand your role. What are things you're willing to be flexible on and what are things you just can't be? But if you go into wishy-washy and you don't have a good understanding of what you need and what you want, then you can make mistakes along the way and you get a little bit wishy-washy and you delay your decisions and you end up with a bad outcome. So I think you've got to understand what you're looking for first. What have you done in the past, but doesn't necessarily mean that's what you need to do moving forward. What could you change to match the market? And then, yes, have a process, have structure. What are the things you can do beforehand? Who can you reach out to? Greg, I'm looking to recruit this role. Do you know anyone that might be interested? As opposed to just putting an ad up. Go into your network, share the opportunity with others. Good people know good people. That hasn't changed though. That's been around for years. But the last point that Keith made was speed. It is vital to be quick at the moment, unfortunately. So having a really clear strategy up front, helps you make quick decisions. I say get more people involved, not to delay your process, just helps you make quicker decisions if you've got 2 or 3 people involved. Any more than that, too much. Don't get a board involved.
What does quick mean?
Oh, I hate to break it to you all, but it's 24 hours after your interview. It's so fast at the moment. And having the conversation with your candidates, how quickly, what else have you got going? And they'll tell you, I've got offers, but I really want this role, but I need to get back to them onto these timeframes. It's quick. It changes depending on the role. You know, it's 24 hours. That's not for every position, but the quicker you can handle it, the better outcome you're gonna get.
Matt, do you have a view on that?
I agree with all that. Yeah, and I think being, like what Sarah mentioned, is having your non-negotiables. What can you negotiate and what are your non-negotiables within the role? Speed to market, being really clear and upfront in terms of, is this a 1-stage interview process? Is it a 3-stage interview process that will be involved? And really having that set out and open, clear and transparent right from the get-go. Absolutely know what you're working with in terms of where is that applicant, where are the applications at, what stage of the process is that, because that also, you know, that will also change all your mindset in terms of how quickly you need to move if you really want to secure that candidate. But absolutely, I think, you know, speed to market, you know, it's a war on talent at the moment. And if you think that's who you want to hire, then move pretty quickly.
And maybe do some of the recruitment admin when you're not recruiting. So have your letters of offers, templates, everything ready to go. So when you do need to recruit, you have a toolbox. You don't have to create a letter of offer from scratch or update your last letter of offer.
And of course, we can help with that here at the Business Chamber because we've got a stack of resources available for you.
Yeah.
I think I also find in my business that quite often I will recruit when I don't need somebody as well, because you never know what's around the corner. You never know what's going to happen. If I have 3 or 4 apprentices, literally in Australia at the moment, we've got a 30% completion rate for hairdressers. So if I take on 3, you know, please God, I get 1 all the way through. So I will quite often get more than I need and try and hang on to them and try and build them so that I don't necessarily need to recruit when I'm desperately looking for a staff member. Yeah.
So there's a war on talent out there. It's hard to find people. What if you're not sure about the candidates that you're recruiting? Do you go ahead and make an offer when you're not 100% sure? Sarah?
No.
No.
No. Have another conversation with them. Do your reference checks and compare them to other applicants. But if you're hesitating, it's a no. It's just you haven't decided yet, but it's probably a no. Would you all agree with that?
I put anyone on a trial.
Do you?
I do, yeah.
A trial,
Because-
that's good.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
right. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I just feel that sometimes their strength might not be in the one-to-one interviewing process, perhaps even, you know, a trial day or something like that. Definitely. I think sometimes, you know, they could, God knows what has brought them to sit in front of you, and they may not be very comfortable in that at all. But yeah, I'm willing to give, you know, pretty much anyone a trial or a go or a 3 months or a 6 months, and yeah, just see.
And there's
Yeah.
certainly some feedback we've had from members of the neurodiverse community, for
Yes.
example, that actually interviews aren't great for everyone. So sometimes you don't get access to
Correct.
this or talent I rely
Yep.
totally on that.
Definitely.
And,
Yeah.
and trialing people is a great way of it's not to use people to, you know, trial them formally, have a formal structure for trialing, paying them for what
Definitely.
for the work that they're doing,
Absolutely.
but give you the option to have an out and also them to have an out.
Definitely.
Because I know people I know that have been for the trial, they've done it, they thought it was going to be right, it was in a hospitality world. When they got there, they just said, I don't think this is me, I'm not going to fit here. And the employer said, that's fine.
Great.
That's fine. It's better now, and it
Yeah.
worked really well. So I think in certain roles, trialing or giving them a test in the role and
Yeah.
experience in the role is really important.
One of the things that everyone's talking about, but we haven't actually talked about here today, is flexible working arrangements and work from home arrangements or flexible hours or whatever that looks like. Matt, is that something that's coming through in the conversations you're having with candidates and employers, and how's that working out?
Yeah, absolutely. I think if we're talking small and medium enterprise, absolutely, you know, that's a conversation that comes up. And it's an interesting one because flexibility means something to you and I. It's you know, so I think it's uncovering what does flexibility mean for that candidate. What are they looking for? Is it working from home 5 days a week, or is it just some flex on pick up and drop off, you know, on particular days? So it's understanding that more. So there's some organisation company which they just don't offer flexibility, and we need to be okay with that. But I think where there is no possibility for that, that is certainly a conversation that's been had and is front of mind. Yeah.
Sarah McPhillips, obviously much harder in a service industry where you need people on the floor to cut hair.
But no, the flexibility that I find my girls really appreciate is a 4-day working week. So we do 2 normal days, 2 very long days, and then they've got 3 days off, and they love that. If we're there for, you know, 8 hours, might as well be there for 10. So yeah, that's something that, and I've said to them quite a few times, are you sure, you know, you're wanting to, oh yeah. So I think just, we can't offer working from home, but we can absolutely, you know, offer things like that, which they really like. Yeah.
So what do you think, Sarah, about people starting earlier, finishing earlier, and then another person sort of starting later and finishing later? Do you think that's something that employers?
If I had extra staff, sure.
Yeah, so it's something that
Yeah.
could work.
Oh, I'd be happy for, I'm willing to talk to anyone about anything. I've had girls that have just done school hours. I've done, you know, all sorts of things. So I would be very happy to fit in anything. And the beauty of our industry as well is that we work on appointments. So therefore, you know, if I opened up the column from 11 o'clock till 4 o'clock, that's what we feel. So we're very lucky that even though we might be working Wednesday and Thursday night till 8:30, 9 o'clock, if someone just wants to do a 4-hour shift because they're breastfeeding or, you know, absolutely no worries at all. So I'm lucky that I can sort of make whatever hours out of their appointments based. So yeah, no, I'm really happy to give anything a go, really. Yeah, whatever suits them is going to suit me ultimately, because they're going to be happier, they're going to be more relaxed, and they're going to, you know, have a sense of ownership and, you know, just that sort of belonging if I've been really flexible on what I can provide. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us today. I think we've coming to the end of our time together. Thank you to everyone who's joined us online. Don't forget, we've got lots of resources available on the Business Chamber website at canberrabusiness.com. Matt Kelly, Sarah Rajak, Keith Hadley, Sarah McPhillips, thank you very much for joining us. It's been a really interesting conversation. I hope everyone's found that really useful, and we look forward to catching up soon.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.